Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Kenton, for inviting me. It's my pleasure to give this lecture, and I'm also here to make a shameless plug for the Idaho Baroque Festival, which starts this week. For the price of a latte, or less than a latte, depending on how big you like your lattes, you can come and hear some of the greatest works ever composed. Our first concert, in fact, is free. If you have this time open on Thursday, upstairs, right next to Einstein Bagels, in the rotunda, we're going to start the festival with a student concert. We're going to have cellists, we're going to have flutists, we're going to have singers, we're going to have keyboard players. It's going to be amazing. Our opening gala concert will be this Friday night at 7:30 p.m. in Haddock Performance Hall, which is in the Lionel Hampton School of Music. And it will feature faculty solos and ensembles, plus our very distinguished 2015 Idaho Baroque scholar, Paul Max Tipton. He's a baritone, and he is one of America's top young singers. This is going to be a real treat. Saturday morning, we're going to have lectures and masterclasses with Paul Max Tipton. And on Saturday night, we'll have our closing concert, which is Paul Max Tipton's solo recital. The first half of the recital, he's going to sing solo songs together with our very own Dr. Rajang Yang, professor of piano, although I think she's going to be playing the harpsichord. And they're going to be songs by Bach, John Doland, Claudio Monteverdi, and a few other composers of the 17th and 18th centuries. After the intermission, we're going to have the cantata Ich habe genug, I have enough, accompanied by an ensemble composed of professors, including me, and it's going to be a wonderful thing. I'm going to talk more about Ich habe genug later. But I really hope that you will join us. And if you haven't been to a classical music concert before, please don't think that you have to know everything about classical music in order to come to one. There's this kind of myth that you have to be one of the initiated before you're allowed to attend a classical concert. Nothing could be further from the truth. People don't know what they're supposed to wear, where they're supposed to sit, when they're supposed to clap, etc. I'm here to ask you, just come as you are. Come in your jeans if that's what you're wearing. Sit wherever you like, clap whenever you want. As the person who's up on the stage, I'm just grateful if anyone claps at all. So I was like, oh, they liked me. So please come. We've tried to keep the ticket prices really down, and I really hope to see many of your faces there at some of our events, or hopefully all of our events. Full disclosure, I'm not an expert on Bach either. My co-artistic director, Dr. Michael Murphy, our director of choral studies, he's the Bach expert. He has a PhD on Bach. Mine is on socialist realism in Russian cello sonatas of Soviet era. So really, you couldn't get much further from the works of J.S. Bach. But I would say I'm a lifelong Bach enthusiast, and I have been since the age of 9, when my first cello teacher told me that I was ready to learn one of the pieces from Bach's 6 suites for solo cello. So I'm going to show you a picture of what this looks like. Bach's own manuscript from this piece of music has been lost. All we have is a copy made by his wife, Anna Magdalena Bach. As well as being a great musician in her own right, she was also really good at copying out music, and she had neater handwriting than he did. So we have a lot of his music preserved thanks to the incredibly hard work of his wife. And she was raising 20 children while she was doing this, so I find this very impressive because I have just the one, still hardly getting anything done. So when I first saw this piece, it puzzled me. Those of you who read a little music, you'll see that it's composed almost exclusively from 16th notes. And I thought it looked like something really repetitive. I thought that it looked like a technical exercise, and I was really disappointed because that's not why I started playing the cello. I started playing the cello because of, the dying swan, that kind of thing. I thought I would get to play the good tunes. I expressed my disappointment to my teacher, and she thought that this was very ignorant. But remember, I was only 9, I didn't know any better. She said, look at what Bach is doing here, and she put a CD into her CD player to demonstrate. Bach isn't just making a melody here. He's making a complete entity. The cello is usually a melodic instrument. We'll play the good tunes, like the Dying Swan, to the accompaniment of a chordal instrument, such as the piano. Here, we don't need a piano, because the cello makes its own melodies and its own harmonies. The Catalan cellist Pablo Casals described this piece as shining with the most glittering kind of poetry. And I have to say, I agree with him. So I thought I would begin this lecture by playing a little prelude in G major by Bach. someone's going to have to help me with this. Okay, it won't come off. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. It's my new toy. I'll be interested to know what you think of it. It does all the same things a wooden cello does, only better. So, let's see if I can get this thing back on again. So I thought a fun way to introduce the amazing works of Bach that we're going to perform at this year's Idaho Bach Festival. To start with a picture of Bach. This is the famous portrait of Bach by Elias Gottlob Hausmann. This was made when Bach was in his 50s. I spend a lot of time with this picture because I have it on the wall of my office, and I confess that I sometimes talk to it when I'm in need of inspiration. I think we can tell a lot about Bach the composer, Bach the professional, and Bach the human being from looking at this. His coat is cut from very expensive material, probably velvet, which was very expensive in the 18th century. It's got brass buttons all over it. The number of buttons tells us a lot of things because brass buttons were also expensive at the time. This is the outfit of somebody who has succeeded in life. The wig. Wigs were also very expensive in the 18th century. And this is a pretty fancy one that would have had to be taken to the hairdresser quite often to make sure all the curls were just so. Wigs were so expensive that they were quite often left from father to son in wills because it wasn't something that you would just throw in the trash after somebody passed away. You know, this was some serious business. Bach had to look fashionable for work. This is what he usually would wear for performing, a thing he did a lot. But beyond the wig, I really like to look at his face and look at his eyes. See how puffy they are? See how many wrinkles he has between his eyes? These are the eyes of somebody who sits up late at night writing music by candlelight after his kids have gone to bed. And he had 20 kids, so yeah, it took a long time to get them all in bed. He's a little heavy set. This is clearly somebody who enjoys the good things in life. We have documentary evidence that Bach really liked sausages, German diet, but yeah, they're really good. He liked his beer and wine. There is evidence that he spent a third of his salary on alcohol for his second wedding to Anna Magdalena Bach. He liked coffee so much that he wrote an entire cantata about it. And I probably shouldn't say this because it's such a bad influence, but he liked smoking so much that he wrote an aria likening it to a form of religious worship. They didn't know in those days that it was bad for you, but yeah, that's what he did. I also think it's the face of a human being who has been through a lot in his life. He's known struggle, he's known suffering, he's known a lot of hardship. But I think he also has a sense of humour. How do we know that? Let's take a look at what Bach's got in his hand. So this is a close-up of the manuscript that he's holding. This is an actual piece of music. Haussmann wrote this down faithfully under Bach's direction. It's a triple canon in 6 voices. Now, you might be thinking, well, I only see one line of music there, so how can that be for 6 voices? The idea was that 3 of the people were supposed to start at different points in the text, and then the other 3 people were supposed to sing it backwards, doing the same thing. It's actually very clever. I was looking for a recording of this to bring today. I couldn't find a suitable one, but it's pretty funny, very funny 18th century joke. You kind of had to be there, but you got to believe it's really funny. So with this in mind, I thought it would be fun to introduce some of the pieces that we will be performing this year. In our Friday night concert, we will be performing the aria Lass, o Welt, mich aus Verachtung from the cantata Liebster Emanuel, Herzog der Frommen. Liebster Emanuel, Herzog der Frommen, it roughly translates as Beloved Emmanuel, Ruler of the Righteous. Kind of sounds a little superhero. And it's a wonderful cantata that Bach wrote for the Feast of Epiphany, which falls on January the 6th. In the Lutheran Church here, this is a very happy occasion. It is celebrated by young people going from house to house, spreading their merriment. And it's also celebrated with cake, another very good German tradition. If you were wondering what kind of cake, I looked this up. It's flavoured with orange and spices, and it's wrapped in golden flaky pastry. And it sounds horrible, right? We would never have any of that. So you might think, happy occasion. Why is this text then so depressing? Leave me, O scornful world, in troubled loneliness. You think this would be like the saddest song ever written. You think it would be, really bad, but it's not. This is an amazing piece. It's actually in a major key. That in classical music, we associate that with being happy. It's not as simple as that, of course, but when I'm teaching 6-year-olds, I teach them the difference between major and minor keys like this. I go, I am glad, do, mi, sol, mi, do, and then for minor key, I am sad, do, mi, sol, mi, do. Anyway, everyone has a good laugh, major and minor keys. So you'd think this would be a minor key, but it's not. It's in a major key. And it's also almost quite upbeat piece of music. On Friday night, this will be performed by a guest artist, Paul Max Tipton. And the solo flutist will be our very own Leonard Garrison, who is right there, who's an amazing flutist. Accompanying them will be Dr. Rajang Yang on harpsichord, and I will be playing the cello. And another thing that the cello does really well, apart from the Dying Swan, which is playing bass lines, kind of the same role that an electric guitar takes in modern rock music. So I had a little technical problem with my PowerPoint slide, so I have brought a recording of this on my own laptop. The speakers are not that great, so I'm sorry, you won't be able to hear it all that well, but it gives you an idea. Performing this will be the Amsterdam Baroque Orchestra, directed by Ton Koopman. So there's a bit more of it than that. It goes on for a while, but for reasons of time, I'm going to cut that off. The sharp-eared among you may have heard that where I just finished, the flute is repeating some material that it previously had, but the flutist is improvising some ornamentation. What a lot of people don't realise about Bach is he was one of the great musical improvisers of all time, somewhat akin to modern jazz musicians who are these terrific improvisers. Bach was doing the same thing. So the flutist who was playing in this recording was trying to vary the melody by adding ornaments, and Dr. Garrison over here is really good at that, so I can't wait to perform this on Friday night. Here, leaving the world is seen as a positive thing, not as a depressing thing. And I think it's very telling that Bach wrote this setting of the text for a singer and a solo flutist. It's as if there are two protagonists in this drama. One is the texted protagonist, the singer, and the other one is the flute, who has no words but who says so much without words. The Bach specialist and early music performer John Eliot Gardner likened the flute in this piece to a consoling angel. After all, if we could say everything that we needed to say using words, we wouldn't need music, and how much poorer the world would be if that happened. The next piece I'd like to introduce is the cantata BWV 82, Ich habe genug. This translates to I have enough, or roughly as I am content. The idea of death as a relief from the struggles of life takes even greater shape in this piece. Bach wrote this cantata for the festival of Candlemas, also known as the Feast of the Presentation of Jesus at the Temple, which in the Lutheran Church year is on February the 2nd. We're going to be performing this piece on Saturday night in Haddock Performance Hall in the Lionel Hampton School of Music, with Paul Max Tipton as the baritone soloist, accompanied by strings. Dr. Carol Padgham Albrecht, who is over here, is going to be playing the oboe. This is going to be an amazing concert. And Dr. Roger McVeigh also of our piano faculty, will be playing the harpsichord. So it's going to be a great collaborative effort, and I really hope you can come. So the text from this cantata is derived from the Gospel of St. Luke, and I thought that it would be interesting just to put this up here because I think it forms a really great introduction to the cantata. The protagonist is the biblical figure of Simeon, who is a very old man, a very devout man who lives in Jerusalem. He's been visited by the Holy Spirit, who told him that he won't die until he's seen the Christ child. When Simeon sees the child, he says, "Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace." And that is what this cantata is all about. So this here is from Bach's manuscript, by the way. I always think it's nice to see the composer's handwriting, so I put it up there for you. As you can see, his handwriting he obviously dashed this off in a huge hurry, and there's corrections, there's erasings, there's crossed out bits. There's some water damage to the text. And for reasons I'm about to explain, when I first saw this manuscript, I wondered if it might be tear stains. So I embedded a video on the slide. It's not going to work, so I'm going to play it on my computer instead. But I put the text of an aria from Ich habe genug up here so you can see it. I'm going to play for you an aria called Schlummert ein, macht Augen. And you'll see I put the last line from this aria at the bottom of the slide. And you'll see that Bach, in his handwriting, has written SDG at the end. This stands for the Latin text, Soli Deo Gloria. Bach wrote this quite a lot at the ends of pieces in his manuscripts, particularly if he thought he had done a really good job. It means to the glory of God alone, or in some translations, to the glory of the only God, which, well, that has some theological things that I feel ill-qualified to unpack because music professor, not theology professor. It was sort of his affirmation of faith. He would quite often do it. Sometimes he wrote AMDG, Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam, to the greater glory of God. So all his pieces, even when secular, were religiously motivated. This is a really wonderful aria, Schlummert ein. There may have been an almost autobiographical element in why Bach wrote this piece. He wrote it in 1727, soon after a very tragic event in his life. He had lost his frail little 3-year-old daughter, Christiana Sophia. She had always been sickly and was not expected to live long, but even in an age when they expected infant mortality rates to be high, that doesn't make it any less devastating. We can only imagine how the text of this aria must virtually have jumped off the page at Bach during this horrible time in his life. I'm playing an excerpt sung by the French countertenor Damien Guillon. He's a high-voiced man. A countertenor is a man who sings using his falsetto range, so very high-pitched. Paul Max Tipton is going to do an octave lower than this because he's a low-voiced man. But I really liked this recording, and I wanted to play it for you. I'm really sorry that we can't get a picture, because one of the things that makes this so great is the way that the singer and instrumentalists interact with each other. They're sitting very close together, and you can tell from the way that they move and breathe together that they find this piece so incredibly moving. So Schlummert ein, I've placed the text in my own translation of it at the side of the slide. This is some powerful stuff. This is a religious manifesto in the face of adversity. And when Bach says, "I possess no part of you that could matter to my soul," it's as if he's rejecting all of it. The fancy coat, the shiny buttons, the expensive wig, none of this matters anymore. This is an incredibly simple piece. It offers us a child's vision of heaven, sung in the form of a lullaby by a loving father.
So, Miranda, why don't you try the video and see if it might play this?
I'll try. No, it doesn't.
No, it just wants to advance.
Yeah.
Sorry.
excerpt from it. If you want to hear the whole thing, you've got to come to the concert. So the last of the cantatas that I want to talk about in today's presentation is one from very early in Bach's career. Cantata BWV 106, Gottes Zeit ist die allerbeste Zeit, meaning God's time is the very best time. This is going to be the very first piece performed in this year's Idaho Bach Festival because we're using it to open the student concert. Now, originally this piece was written for 2 treble recorders, 2 bass viols, that's that sort of cello-looking instrument on the left there. It's not a cello, it's related, but it's not the same thing. Double bass, which you'll see right there, and a portative organ. However, here at the University of Idaho, we think that anything that sounds really good on those instruments would sound even better when played by 6 cellos. So that's what we're going to do. So I made an arrangement of this piece because I love it so much. One of the performers will be Helena, my student over here, this very intelligent and talented young person. So I absolutely love this piece. I find it almost unbearably moving, and I can't really quite figure out why. But I have a hard time not crying every time my students play this amazing piece. Bach wrote this music on a biblical text. The whole cantata is, again, on the very serious subject of preparing for death. It's based on a text from the Bible about putting your house in order to make sure that you're ready, that everything is prepared. You might think that Bach would have written this late in his life when he was anticipating his own mortality. He actually wrote it when he was 22, the same age as the students who will be performing it. Well, Helena is only 17, but some of the other ones are 22. So even though he was a young man, Bach had been through a huge amount in his life. He'd been orphaned at an early age, and he had experienced a lot of hardship and suffering. You'll notice in this video that the melody is played by the 2 treble recorders. And for those of you who read a bit of music, I put some of the recorder parts at the bottom of the slide here to show you how they look. Now, you might notice that they actually look incredibly similar. And if you didn't know this is being played by 2 people, you might actually think it was only being played by 1 person, because either the parts match or they kind of overlap and cross each other. Now, when I'm teaching music theory and part writing, we say, oh, don't cross the parts. That's bad part writing. You're not supposed to do that. So is Bach practicing bad part writing here? No, he's not. He's doing something that happens a lot in his music. It's a form of religious symbolism. Because here, these recorder parts, they cross. So what else crosses? Like a cross, right? It's crucifix imagery. And I didn't invent this. Entire doctoral dissertations have been written about this stuff. But it's one of the things that I find most affecting about this piece. Even though this cantata is about death, I don't find it a depressing experience. Again, Bach teaches us that it can be an uplifting experience, that it can be a relief and a positive thing. Another thing I love about this piece is the steadiness of this kind of pacing rhythm that you'll hear played by the bass viols and the double bassist. It's as if every step we take in our lives takes us one step closer to our own death. And I think this is the point that Bach was trying to make. I find this piece, as I mentioned, incredibly moving. And if we could see this video, then you would see that the players who are making this music do too. It's as if the music is forcing us to gaze upon the infinite, to gaze upon our own mortality, and not to look away. So this is what it sounds like. So I'm sorry that that was kind of quiet and you couldn't hear the full glory of how great this music is. But there's even more reason that you've got to come to the concert on Thursday, 12:30 in the Rotunda, right outside Einstein Bagels. Please bring your lunch and listen to our University of Idaho Cello Ensemble playing this. It's going to be a treat. So in summary, what I've hoped to convey today is not only the religious nature, but also the emotion and humanity of Bach's music. Bach didn't see himself the way that we see him as, the greatest composer of all time. He was a person of much more modesty and humility than that. He saw himself as a master craftsman, and he prided himself on being really great at his job as the Kapellmeister of St. Thomas's Church in Leipzig, Germany. Bach understood the struggles of what it means to be human, and for him, his religion was a tremendous consolation for the difficulties that he experienced in his life. His music was an affirmation of his faith. But you don't even have to be religious to find Bach's religion absolutely compelling and convincing in his music. The composer and Bach interpreter Georgi Kotag says it better than I could when he observes, "Consciously, I am an atheist, but I do not say it out loud, because if I look at Bach, I cannot be an atheist. Then I have to accept the way that he believed. His music never stops praying. And how can I get closer if I look at him from the outside?" With this in mind, I have a little more music to play for you, if you like. The Allemande in G major that follows the prelude that I played at the beginning of the lecture. Let's see if I can do this myself this time. Oh, look at that. time for questions and comments.
Can you talk a little bit about this new instrument and how it compares to a conventional cello?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because I'm really excited about this cello. As you probably know, string instruments are incredibly expensive. And the kind of cello that I'd always wanted cost upwards of $100,000. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't just have $100,000 sitting around. And I felt that it would not be responsible to go into such debt for an instrument, particularly since I have a family. Before I came to the University of Idaho, I was in a full-time string quartet, and we were privileged to have sponsored instruments. Wealthy donors would buy instruments and let us have the use of them. String instruments are great investments because providing you don't break them, they never go down in value, they just go up and up and up and up and up, which is why they now cost as much as a house. So when I left my quartet, I had really hoped that my sponsor would let me keep the cello, but he would not. He wanted to give it to another string quartet cellist. So I was left with what I call the cello problem, the problem that anything we like is so vastly beyond our resources. And that's when I remembered about 10 years previously, when I was a graduate student, a man called Louis Laguerre, who was a member of the Boston Symphony, had come to my graduate school with one of these, a cello that he had invented. As well as being an amazing cellist, Louis Laguerre had a hobby of boat building. And he thought, wouldn't it be fun to make a cello out of boat building materials? So he did, with the aid of a friend who was a specialist in such matters. And he came up with this cello that for $7,500, and I know that's a lot of money, but it's not as much money as a six-figure cello that I had been pining for. It sounds exactly like a wooden one, in fact, much better. I would say this is equivalent to the sound of a wood cello that costs at least 10 times what this one cost. So I'm rather infatuated with it. Other very convenient things about this cello. Wooden cellos, you can't get them wet, you can't get them hot, you can't get them cold, you can't get them too dry, you can't leave them in the car, you can't do anything with them, it's terrible. So this one is impervious to temperature and moisture, or lack of moisture. You can clean it with Windex. The first time I did this, I felt really bad. I was like, this is not how we treat cellos, but actually it's the best way to clean this. And it makes a lot of noise. Like you just touch the string and it goes, whoa! As opposed to, you have to work quite hard on a wooden instrument. So I'm infatuated with it. My students are too, and they want one. So, yes.
Is the neck carbon fiber too?
Yeah. The back and the neck is all one piece. The front is glued on. But with the exception of that, it's all one piece. This end in here is also made of carbon fiber. I've been keeping a rubber tip on it because it is so sharp I could really damage myself and others. But I use it on stages when the rubber tip would slip.
Tuning pins too?
Sorry?
Tuning pins,
Oh yeah, these are really, really cool. If you've ever played around with a string instrument, you'll know that tuning these things is really hard. These are carbon fiber pegs that have gears inside them so that they don't ever slip, and you can just take them up and down and they don't have the traumatizing thing that sometimes happens on a wood cello, which is sometimes when you are trying to impress people, your pegs all go at once and you get all hot and sweaty trying to get them back up again, and then they go again if you're having a particularly bad day. So yeah, very convenient. I love this thing.
Yeah, what about the bow?
Oh, the bow. This is a conventional wooden bow from the 19th century. I do have a carbon fiber bow in my case if anybody would like to have a look at it. It too is black with this kind of diamond weave pattern on it. And so is the case, because when I bought my new cello, I was going to need something to carry around in. I really wanted a matching case because I'm geeky like that. So, yeah.
Is there a reason you use the wooden bow instead of the other?
I'm passionately fond of this bow, and that's why carbon fiber bows can be really good too, but I like a bow that is light, and this one weighs 3 ounces, which feels really good in my hand. I've had it for a very long time, and yeah, I just really like it. There's no other reason.
Can you talk a little bit about what goes into planning a program for a 3-day music festival like the one coming up? And how far in advance do you try to identify a guest artist? And over the now 5 years of this festival, are you trying to work your way through a portion of the repertoire?
Well, we kind of plan it around the guest artist, him or herself. All planning is done beginning a year in advance, and we're getting all the dates and venues lined up, and then we start looking for a guest artist. This year, the guest artist was the doing of Dr. Michael Murphy, my co-artistic director. He had met Paul Max Tipton at a voice conference and thought that he was just so wonderful, and we had to have this amazing person. And he sent me an email about this, and when I listened to Paul Max Tipton's recordings, I agreed that we had to have this amazing singer. So we invite the person, and we basically just ask them what they want to sing or play if it's an instrumentalist. Last year we had David Schulenberg, the harpsichordist and Bach scholar. So Paul Max Tipton, all of this stuff was his idea. Ich habe genug, the cantata BWV 82. He really wanted to do that because it's one of Bach's better known cantatas. It's so moving, it's such a beautiful piece. Plus you get to have an oboe, so that's really cool too, right, Caroline? Yeah. So other than that, we ask the music faculty if there are things on their wish list that they would like to play. And there always is. Dr. Garrison over here will be playing a piece inspired by Bach, together with our bassoon professor, Dr. Javier Rodriguez, called Bachianas Brasileiras by the Brazilian composer Villa-Lobos. So, of course, that is very appropriate to a Bach festival because inspired by Bach. So, it's a collection of things that Mike and I think are cool.
Any other questions? So, Dan, yes, please.
Could you go back to the first slide?
Yep.
Well, not that one.
That one?
Are you at all familiar with this argument in here about that she in fact may have written that?
Yes, and I was really interested in that. So I actually had a conversation with David Schulenberg, last year's Bach scholar, about it. He said there's really no evidence that this happened. The musicologist Martin Jarvis of the University of Charles Darwin in Australia, he thought it was a really controversial idea that he hoped to bring to greater attention, or perhaps he hoped to bring himself to greater attention. But there was not a lot of evidence about that. Anyway, Martin Jarvis, this musicologist who said that, oh, Mrs. Bach wrote the cello suites. What happened with that is he showed up at all these conferences, and the preeminent Bach scholar, Christian Wolff, actually smacked him down. Well, not literally, but he delivered a stinging smackdown at a Bach conference. And even then, Professor Jarvis was undeterred. However, he has become deterred since then. And now he's saying that Maria Anna Mozart actually wrote Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's stuff. It's also on very little evidence, I might say.
So can you go back to the title slide?
Yep.
And just as a reminder of what we have to look forward later this week. So Thursday upstairs in the Rotunda at 12:30.
You know what? I forgot I have another slide that has this information more
You've got
legibly.
the full program. There we
Yeah,
go.
yeah. I
That's
wrote it
easy.
out big, and I put Bach's signature and his STG at the bottom. Oh, you know, just for giggles.
So, well, I hope you'll have a chance to hear the full version of some of these that you heard excerpts of today. I hope you'll come back next week for a continuing program in our Colloquium series. But let's thank Professor Wilson for her expertise and her talent today.